Today on the show, the French are rioting over gas taxes, Portland's got unarmed cops, and the one and only Shelley Wade joins me to talk about syrup.
Welcome to the future, where the glass is half full and you'll need new glasses, where you'll be jumping from conclusions.
The past is annulled, and a new future is born.
Never before in history has so much meant so little to so many. AD on the radio.
So, I suppose one of the reasons why I'm looking at this situation so closely, why it holds such great interest for me, is because I grew up with a similar type of police force. What are we talking about? Well, I grew up in England, where, as Robin Williams once put it, the police don't have a gun and you don't have a gun, so it's stop, or I'll say stop again. But I gotta tell you, being around cops in England that did not have guns did little to nothing to me in terms of me taking those police officers or their authority less seriously. They were still cops. They could still put you in jail. There was still nothing you could do if they wanted to arrest you. I guess maybe I'm not a violent criminal. I'm not someone who's going to attack. I'm not going on the attack. I'm not going to run. If I'd done something wrong and a cop wanted to take me to jail, I would go willingly. One thing remains certain between England and America: you can beat the rap, but you can't beat the ride. You can fight it afterwards, but you can't run away from the cop if they decide they're going to take you in. So the fact that English police officers weren't armed did not diminish my respect for their authority growing up in England. Which is why I suppose I'm looking at the situation going on in Portland with such great interest. Have you heard about what's going on there? I'm curious to know what you make of this. A couple years back, Ted Wheeler, mayor of Portland, made a bit of an unpopular decision. He got rid of horse cops. Yeah, he eliminated an entire division of the Portland Police Bureau, the Mounted Patrol Unit. And then he said he would replace it with something that he thought would be more valuable. Officers who would work unarmed, not sworn in the role of serving and protecting in smaller, less demanding situations, and also in the role of improving the Portland police's relationship with residents living in what he called the margins of the city. Basically, rough neighborhoods that have traditionally had problems with cops, he wanted to send a kinder, gentler, unarmed cop in there to improve the overall good vibes. Now, the idea faced a certain amount of backlash from two decidedly different portions of the community in Portland. And I bring this up because when something like this happens, you never know how far away it is from happening in your town, in your community. But the deal is this. The new policing pilot program would be called, they wouldn't even be called cops. They're the public safety support specialists, the PS3s. They're non-sworn officers who don't carry guns. The PS3s, like I said, grew out of this proposal a couple of years ago. They're community service officers who would respond to minor property crimes, nuisance calls, things like that. And like I said, they cut the mounted patrol to fund this program. And like I said, the argument for this is you want to create a less ominous and threatening police presence and improve relations between police officers and the public. And then there's also the idea that, hey, these PS3 types, these public safety officers that aren't armed, that aren't sworn in, well, they can work desk jobs. They can do admin work. They can wait for a tow truck to show up at the scene of an accident. But if you've got a real cop that's able to accomplish some really different things, a cop that is more of a man or woman of action, well, you want them out on the streets taking care of business in the way that sort of person does. I guess it's sort of thinking about reapportioning and reallocating resources. But it was a wildly unpopular move for a couple different reasons. First and foremost, The Mounted Patrol Unit, well, that was a favorite. That was a favorite for cops. That was a favorite for citizens. And a lot of people said the goodwill that was established with horses, well, that was tantamount to the goodwill that you could get with an unarmed officer. And you know what? I kind of get it. Like, if a police officer has a dog, you kind of feel like, ah, there's this little unbelievably adorable man's best friend thing between us. If they've got a dog, I like dogs. How bad could they be? It's a conduit to a better relationship, an animal. And the Mounted Patrol in Portland allegedly served as a much kinder, gentler face of the police bureau. Cops and horses patrolling parts of the neighborhoods in Portland acted not only as riot officers, but also kind of sort of a public relations team. Robert Hall, the president of Friends of the Mounted Patrol, said groups of kids, parents, teenagers, and the elderly, they all come up. They want to see the horses. They want to pet them. They end up talking to the police officers. And that is what community policing is all about. So there's a lot of people that are all sorts of upset saying, you're taking horse cops off the street. Horses, besides being incredibly useful when it comes to controlling riots and things of that nature, well, horses also help build community relations. It's a sweet, soft, fuzzy, bonding animal that makes police more approachable. So, there's that. And then there's the whole aspect of the fact that as peace-loving and granola-eating as it purports to be, Portland has become ground zero for all sorts of kind of insane protest, counter-protest, racially and politically motivated violence. It's kind of sort of out of control. So you have these non-sworn officers who do not carry guns. They provide support by manning front desks. So those are clerks. Those are admins. And it means that Portland gave up something that was looked upon as a very efficient PR move that also happened to be a force that was incredibly well-versed in controlling riots in a town where rioting has become disturbingly commonplace over the last couple of years. I'm curious to know how you would feel about this coming to your town. Tweet me at ADSXE, or you can email me ad@iheartradio.com. I'd love to know.
Real radio.
104.1.
Where the left and right come together for fundamental truths. AD on the radio, on Twitter at ADSXE.
So, speaking of things that happen elsewhere with the potential to impact your life, the way we were talking about Portland and their recent decision to cut the budget for the mounted police in Portland and use that money instead to provide basically cop clerks, unarmed sort of cop assistants that would be less threatening and better at public relations. That was the whole idea. If that catches on in Portland, then it could be something that's coming to a neighborhood near you. This is an interesting and cautionary tale. Did you see what happened in Paris this week? Or what has been happening in Paris and all of France? French President Emmanuel Macron was going to implement this fuel tax. Now, he was hoping to wean France off of fossil fuels in the next several years. Like, he wanted to completely and utterly do away with gas, diesel, things of that nature, and instead have a nation of electric cars. Now, look, reducing your country's dependence on foreign oil, you'll never get a bigger fan of that concept than me. But he went about it in a way that did not sit well with the French public. And one wonders if something like this could ever happen in America. See, here's the thing. Emmanuel Macron, he scrapped this fuel tax rise because he was afraid of violence. There have been weeks of nationwide protests and the worst rioting Paris has experienced in decades in the face of this fuel tax that was going to start happening. Now, the idea was to make fuel something that the French public viewed differently. Oh man, it would be so much more efficient to have an electric car. There's this tax on gasoline and diesel and things of that nature. Perhaps I should get with the new century and move on from fossil fuels. That was the idea. But it did not play out that way at all. Macron decided to get rid of the tax plan for next year. And basically, it's no longer a thing. And it's sort of the French government bowing to a bunch of rioters. I mean, who knows? You don't like to hear of rioters getting results. You really don't, because it's contradictory to everything that makes sense. You got a problem, you've got something you want to protest, destroying the grocery store across the street from you is not the best or most efficient way to express your feelings. But that's kind of sort of what happened in Paris. It was the worst rioting in Paris in decades. And because of that, Macron scrapped the fuel tax. Now, this is a move that has ramifications way beyond what's going on in France. The fuel tax was part of France's effort, like I said, to get the folks of France to stop relying on fossil fuels. And there was an environmental component to this as well. The idea was to reduce greenhouse gases and help slow down climate change. And not having this tax is essentially a big hitch in the giddy-up of France's effort to be more environmentally sound in their eyes. Now, over here, people are denying the idea of climate change. People are denying the idea of global warming. People are denying the idea of greenhouse gases and all of the above. They're like, it's a very real problem, and we're going to tax you if you're part of that problem. Tax you like a lot. But that did not fly. And it's one of those situations where I really hope Americans don't look at it and go, oh, clearly we have to take to the streets and set it all on fire, because that's what has been working out for the people of France. There are these things called the Yellow Vest protests. They started on November 17th over the government plan to raise taxes on diesel and gas. But 3 weeks later, by the time Macron basically surrendered to the French people, 3 weeks of violence, 3 weeks of anarchy in the streets. After he bowed to that pressure and got rid of the new fuel tax, protesters saw that they've got some power, and they went, oh, man, we want more. See, France not doing so hot at the moment. Times are tough financially there. There's high taxes. There's a high level of socialism in France, and that always comes with high taxes. But the high taxes, coupled with lots of unemployment and historically low wages, well, that doesn't have people very happy. And it has people looking at places like America and going, capitalism, as opposed to enforced socialism, as opposed to being told what we're going to drive and what it's going to be powered with. We like that idea better. The French fries really wish they had some freedom fries. Or the French people really wish their French fries were freedom fries at this stage in the game. But like I said, the uncomfortable global precedent that has been set here was a government response to violence of surrender. Yeah, people pounding on the idea of law and order in the streets here. And meanwhile, an international example is being set of take to the streets, set it all on fire, and your government will pay attention to you. And that's exactly what happened. On Tuesday, the government agreed to suspend the fuel tax rise for 6 months. But it didn't work. It didn't appease the protesters. It was too little, too late. Other groups have now joined in, going, hold on, if they're screaming and yelling and setting things on fire, maybe we should scream and yell and set some stuff on fire too. The protests have taken on an either bigger dimension. Now, there's trade unions, there's farmers who are vowing to join in the fun. Start rioting. start screaming and yelling and, like I said, setting it all on fire to get their government to pay attention to them. The cops over there are all scared. They're warning everybody about potential violence during these demonstrations in Paris. There's a small security forces union who is threatening a strike. Yeah. Security forces union going, we're going to take to the streets. It's scary stuff, right? Parliament debated the 2019 budget early in the week, and then just all of a sudden gave in. They went, okay, you're burning the country to the ground. You're rioting like freaking crazy. Maybe you don't have to pay so much tax per liter of petroleum, as I believe it's called over there. Prime Minister said, I have no problem with admitting that on such or such question, we could have done differently. That if there is such a level of anger, it's because we still have a lot of things to improve. They said the tax is now abandoned. The government is ready for dialogue. And if this is a cautionary tale, I hope it's a cautionary tale to our leaders, to our government, regardless of which side of the political fence you fall down on. American people, you don't want to force us to take to the street. You don't want us to start setting things on fire the way the folks in France have done. You don't want any of this. The French government said, hey, we're going to implement this tax. French people said, please don't. No, we don't want that. That's unfair. French government didn't listen. French people went, really, we can't handle it. We're all broke. We're all unemployed. You're taxing us into oblivion. Please don't do that. They went, we're doing it. So the French people en masse took to the streets and set Paris on fire. And now all of a sudden their government is ready to dialogue. So if there is a cautionary tale, if there is a lesson to be learned, if Americans are looking at France going, we don't want to go there, I hope it's not only the American people. I hope it is the American government. Like I said, I don't care which side of the political fence you fall down on. It's important to recognize that people voted you into the positions you're in. It is your honor and your duty to serve them. And, I don't know, maybe occasionally, once in a freaking while, listen to them. It's this weird dichotomy. In any other situation, the person that cuts the check can have you in their office at their will. My boss pays me. Therefore, if they say they want to talk to me about something, what do? I go up to their office and I face the music. Government's the only situation where that isn't the case. And hopefully, our politicians are looking across the pond and looking across the channel going like, maybe we should do something a little differently to avoid that.
For more stimulation and less irritation, 9 out of 10 doctors choose KPRC AM 950, Houston's more stimulating talk radio.
Don't get the blues, get all the news. We mean all of you guys out there in Radio Land. All aboard!
He's back. AD on the radio.
Give it up, yeah. Give it up, yeah. Bring this on, come on.
So I'm lucky enough to be joined in the studio at the moment by the one and only Shelley Wade. How are you?
That's funny because that's my Instagram handle because there's some other chick had Shelley Wade already. Uh-huh. So I'm like, okay, fine. I'll be the one and only Shelley Wade.
Really?
So you guys follow me, and Shelley spelled with an EY.
I wonder, I thought it was because you were a big Prince fan because, my name is Prince. The one and only. I thought that was...
No, actually, that's a good idea, but no, that wasn't it. That's actually a great idea. That's the story I'll use from here on out. Yeah. I'm the Prince Authority, so that's why it's the one and only.
You are welcome for that. Hey, actually, you know what? I thought of you the other day because I don't even remember what the commercial was for. Mm-hmm. But it was a commercial for something, and Prince's music was being used in the background.
Oh, it was Capital One, I think.
Was it?
Yeah, and I remember that so, vividly because Prince, when he was alive, he did not let companies use his music
on
like
the internet. He was like, the internet is the devil's playground. No, absolutely none of my music is to be up on YouTube. And
so as soon as I heard Let's Go Crazy on the Capital One commercial, I've been torn because... First of all, I love hearing his music any chance I get to hear it, but I also know that he would not have approved approved of this. And I don't know. But I feel a little bit okay about it because I noticed that they've been using Capital One has been using like all the 80s hits. Like they have a commercial with Whitney Houston. They have one with Michael Jackson. They have one with Prince. So I'm kind of like, okay, it's not just taking advantage of Prince. It's like, they're trying to do a whole 80s theme. So I'm kind of okay with it. But, I have my side eye up on them.
I had the same reaction when I heard it. I was like, I love this song. This is cool.
They're like,
wait a second. This is a credit card commercial? Prince would not have been happy about that. What the hell are his family members doing to his legacy? His legacy, I tell you, his legacy.
They're making money.
Yeah.
They're making money is what they're doing. And listen, I know Prince fans will probably hate me for saying this, my fellow Prince fans. And by the way, he did not like to use the word fan. He felt like it was short for fanatic. Oh. And so he didn't like for you to say, I'm your fan.
Right.
But since he's gone, I feel like, okay, I can say fan now. But, you know what? Listen, I feel like if he cared that much, that he would have made sure that it was in the will, do not use my music for this stuff. And there are some people who feel like, his will, it was one out there. They just haven't found it. Somebody tried to hide it. But I'm kind of like, they've been looking for a long time now. So maybe he didn't write one,
Prince was also incredibly secretive, and he apparently had all sorts of media backed up in vaults and on hard drives and uploaded to different portions of the internet that no one knew anything about. So he was basically, from what I understand, a bit of a pack rat and hid things, whether they were writing or financial documents or completely recorded compositions or entire movies. Like, he had all these sort of different projects that he was working on, and they're literally scattered everywhere. So if he did have something directing the executors of his estate not to license his music to commercials, but to me, it's sort of a no-brainer. You go, okay, here's a guy that didn't even want his music up on YouTube. Do you really think he wants Let's Go Crazy with the dirty part about calling your old lady for a friendly word edited out? I was like, why couldn't you just use the other verse instead of so obviously editing it? Call my old lady for a friendly word, and then let's hunt for the purple bananas till they put us in the truck. I was like, it doesn't even rhyme. You could have done that so much more artfully.
Look at you knowing all the lyrics.
It's a funny story. I mean, I'm a really big Prince. I'm trying to respect. Yeah, we're giving people a hard time for not respecting his legacy. So I really love the music of Prince. And,
he was a musical genius.
Absolutely. But when I was a kid in the 4th or 5th grade, was my first ever cover band covered "Let's Go Crazy." And so, I remember going through the words, I was like, and not understanding at that age, when he says calling his old lady, does that mean his mom or his girlfriend? And why is she out of breath? What's going on?
Just way too involved with the lyrics. But more importantly, what was this cover band's name? This is what I want to know.
Well, we were a bunch of school kids, and because we were a bunch of school kids, and our goal was to play the middle school talent show. And it was middle school, so we must have been in the 5th grade at that point. Because we wanted to play the middle school talent show, our name was Academic Warning. If you did lousy in school and your grades weren't good enough, you got an academic warning. So my first cover band was called Academic Warning.
You guys can't see me right now, but I'm covering up my face no.
What do you want? We're in the 5th grade. I think that's cool.
Shaking my head.
No Academic Warning? What would you have called your 5th grade cover band?
I don't know, but it wouldn't have been Academic Warning.
Oh. You know what? I think... Okay,
that's hilarious.
This is a very weird thing to bring up. A very weird thing to bring up. But I remember we didn't decide on the name Academic Warning. Our principal decided on it for us. Oh. Because, all right, we were Metallica fans. We like Metallica and Prince.
Okay.
I remember wow, this is all coming back to me. We were Metallica fans. There was a Metallica song called Blitzkrieg. This is how far-reaching our various influences were in Academic Warning in the 6th grade. We had one Prince cover and one Metallica cover. And I think we played Fade to Black. We did Let's Go Crazy and Fade to Black by Metallica. But Metallica had a song called Blitzkrieg. We wanted to call ourselves Blitzkrieg, not realizing at the time that there were some incredibly dubious implications with regard to the German actions in the Second World War that applied to the name Blitzkrieg. Yep. So our principal went, "Is not cool. you're called academic warning.
And so he came up, wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
He's like, probably because he was always giving you academic warnings.
Yeah,
So he felt like it was fitting.
So, like, we were chill at the time in the 6th grade, but later on in school, me and this guy definitely bumped heads. Like, I was one of the first kids that decided haircuts are not for me. And he had a problem with long hair. And, like, he thought it didn't look good, or there was a school handbook that defined the school dress code, and there was something about haircuts being appropriate, which, there's a lot of room for interpretation there. But as my hair started to get longer, he was like, either you cut your hair or you're suspended. So academic warning was this cheerful, jovial thing, but it was a precursor to a very conflicted relationship that I had with this man.
Hey, but like, why is this relationship with you and the principal reminding me of Ferris Bueller and his principal? Why is this?
Mine was a more lackadaisical approach to my scholastic activities. Like, to this day, did you study hard in school?
You know what? I actually, and I'm not even trying to brag, I really didn't have to because I was always such a smart kid. But, when I did study, you know what I did? And you'd probably like this too because I'm such an auditory person. I like listening, and sound is very important to me. So I would record all of my lessons into like this tape recorder.
No kidding.
And I would listen to it over and over. And that's how I memorized everything. So if that was my form of studying, but I didn't always have the books cracked open or anything, but I always made really good grades, except when I went through my weird phase in middle school and I just started drawing pictures of Prince on the wall and then getting F's in class. But that was just because I was a weird teenager with hormones. But after that, I went right back to my straight A's.
Really? So Prince played a pivotal role in both of our middle schools. Prince got you in trouble.
He did.
Back in the day.
I wrote and I was so stupid because it was like I didn't do it anonymously. I did it. You know how the artists that paint on the wall, spray paint.
Graffiti writers.
Graffiti, yeah.
Yes.
Graffiti artists, they have their name, their tag.
There's still probably pieces of my work up around various parts of New York City. I'm familiar with artistic vandalism, yes.
Okay, so they're smart. They put their fake names. Yeah. I would put my real name. Yeah. I'd be like, draw a big picture of Prince, and then I would put Prince and Shelley under it. So it's like I was just dumb in that way.
Shelley Wade.
Smart in the books, not so smart drawing on the walls. Not a smart graffiti artist. So the teacher, whenever she saw it, she would give me a bad grade, make me clean off all the desks, report to my mom that I've been wearing makeup at school.
Oh, yeah, that was a no-no.
Yeah, it was an my mom didn't want me to wear makeup that young.
Wow.
But I was all about it.
I was such a every suburbanite white kid from a privileged upper middle class upbringing. I was under the very mistaken impression for a long time that I was down. I was not, but I thought I was this ill-ass graffiti writer growing up in London. And I look back on it now and go, you know what? There's lots of graffiti writers that have made lots of different getaways from cops. I bet I was one of the few to do it in my mother's Volvo.
Did you literally drive around in your mom's Volvo?
Well, I mean, I didn't have my own car.
That's hilarious.
So, I remember doing I remember tagging up a train station pretty good, and then driving away in my mom's Volvo.
Wow.
Yeah.
No, if that were today with all the surveillance out there,
you
would have gotten caught easily.
I did it with in England we call it a balaclava helmet. That's what they call a ski mask over there. A balaclava helmet.
No, but they would have caught you with the car.
The
plates and everything.
I didn't park at the train station. I was smart enough to not do that. But I'll tell you, me and my friend, we were all into hip hop and graffiti and all this sort of stuff, but we didn't really know anything about it. And I remember my first experience of writing graffiti. I meet up with my friend. And he's like, "You ready? Let's go do this." And he had a bucket and a paintbrush. I'm like, "See you later, man."
No.
Sometimes you just know you're done. You're longing for that shining sun. You walk these streets most every day. You're waiting to get washed away. Radio.
AD on the radio.
So I got you in here to talk about this bizarre fetish because you've talked to me in the past about some of yours, and it's not something that I relate to even a little bit. But to answer your question, before we get into all that, my childhood friend, the first time we decided to go out and write graffiti, he showed up with a bucket and a paintbrush. I was like, no. And then later on, when I went back for round 2 of my graffiti writing career, I had the appropriate aerosols. I even went out and got the fat caps. Which,
with the what?
Fat caps?
Okay, I don't know.
Fat caps
Sorry.
are like...
not up on my graffiti slang.
Fat caps are sort of like the little caps that go on the top of a spray painting can. Well, they have you want to fill in more area quicker. So they spray paint in a wider diameter.
Okay.
So you cover more area with fat caps.
I'm visualizing it right now. I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So like sometimes you'll even see people that are graffiti, right? Like you lived in New York for a long time, like I did. Sometimes you'll see guys with like little fat cap necklaces or little like, and that tends to be because they're graffiti writers.
Okay.
It's weird though. It's like there was the only ever wanton law breaking I ever really did. And
really?
Yeah. Well, okay. So I guess I used to drink underage a lot, and then.
But like when you got to the States or in London, because like the drinking age over there is a lot younger, right?
Well, also they don't care.
Yeah.
Because, and I'm like 6'1" on a good day, but I'm also the same height now that I was when I was 13 years old.
Okay, so you looked a little older,
and they just don't care in England. So like I would go to bars from the time when I was like 13, 14 years old. I'll never forget being in a bar once and being 15. Being drunk, and waitress comes up to me. She's like, hey, how old are you? And I was like, and I forgot what the legal drinking age was because I was a drunk 15-year-old. And by the way, kids, this is not something you should be doing. I'm not encouraging it.
Don't underage
drink. I was just like, 17? And she was like, hey, you have to be 18 to drink.
Oh, wow.
But no, this was the thing. She was like, you finish that one up and then no more for you.
No.
Yeah. It's a completely different vibe to drinking over there. And then like when I came to America, I went to like a couple of keggers. I had like that traditional American experience. I went and visited some friends of mine that lived in suburban America, and they're like, we're going to have a kegger. I was like, great. That sounds fun. I've never been to a kegger before. And
neither have I.
It was broken up by the cops. I was like, seriously? The cops in this town have nothing better to do than stop us from drinking a beer? Like it was the craziest thing. It was a whole different vibe.
Let me ask you this about in London, you were saying they don't really care. Do they card you at all? Do people is making up fake IDs a thing there?
No, it's like the idea of a fake ID and all that sort of stuff. But no, it wasn't. It wasn't anywhere nearly as strictly enforced.
Interesting.
Okay, so the fetish talk. We're running out of time, so we got to get to it. There's a 52-year-old guy called Robert Somley. He's a landscaper in Monroe, Connecticut, and he and a 48-year-old female coworker were recently working at a home when he said he needed a break. Bear in mind, not their home. About 20 minutes later, she went inside and found him naked, watching porn and covering himself in maple syrup.
No.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I'm offended that he used up those people's maple syrup.
Yeah.
That first of all, and then secondly, he's watching porn in somebody else's house and covering himself in maple syrup and doing God knows what else.
Yeah, I wonder if he's licensed and bonded.
So how did his coworker respond?
Well, funny you should ask. Shockingly, she said she also was into nudity, porn, and maple syrup. She said it was a turn-on, and she asked if she could join in. According to the police report, they did some stuff involving the syrup and various body parts, and to mix it up, also brought some blueberry jelly into the mix.
Oh my God.
Blueberry jelly's kind of fancy too, and like so there's like, you know, there's cheap ass artificial maple syrup that's probably what $1.50 a bottle, and there's sort of like, you know, your average Welch's grape jelly that you get out of a squeezy bottle. But if we're talking about high quality maple syrup and and blueberry jam. Like they could have gone through hundreds of dollars worth of condiments. It's not cool.
And by the way, Connecticut is New England, and so they're really close to Vermont, so it may have been some really high quality maple syrup there.
Yeah, maybe that's part of the thing. Like,
I have to say,
when I have local produce spread all over my body, I go wild.
I have to say though, the guy must be hot. Because if he weren't hot and I walked in and he had maple syrup on him and he's watching porn, I'd think he was disgusting. But if he was hot, maybe that's why she gave him a pass.
Well, I don't know. There's no pictures here.
We need pictures.
But like, I would imagine that if you're a woman that enjoys a gentleman covering himself in maple syrup, your options have to be of a somewhat limited variety. Not only that, it's a little difficult to bring that up into conversation. You meet someone at a bar, you're getting along. Hey, how are you? Oh, what do you do? Oh, very nice. Do you like covering your body in maple syrup? Because I do. Because it's not really something that,
That's why he surprised her with it.
Well, if you're into it, it's not an opportunity that presents itself all that often. So regardless of whether or not she was hot, she was like, oh, another syrupy. Let's go.
Is that what you call them, syrupies?
Yeah, syrupy. It's time to jam.
That's hilarious. I bet you we did some research. It's like that's a thing for some people. There are probably some real syrupies out there.
There's probably some real syrupies. Now, here's the thing. There was one thing he did, though, that she was not into.
What?
She found out later that he had taken a video of the entire thing on his phone.
No.
Yeah.
Where was his phone set up is what I want to know.
I don't know. Bet it's sticky, though.
Unfortunately.
Even though she was cool with all the syrup and the jelly, she was not okay with him recording it without her permission.
Because it's okay for her to be a syrupy on the down low. She doesn't want the world to know.
Yeah. What if it was for his personal record?
Still not cool. He needed to get her
I would never
permission.
I would never record someone.
In these Me Too times, he should have gotten her permission.
Well, I think, that's just common sense. That's good
her
manners.
Permission.
Like, I hope that when you were a sixth grader that was into Prince, you asked your teacher's permission before recording them.
Huh?
Well, you were recording your teachers. Did you ask their permission before you set up the tape deck? Like, anytime you're going to record someone, they should know you're recording this.
I didn't record my teachers. What are you talking about?
Did you say you were into audio?
No. I was saying that I would actually record
yourself.
the lessons. Yeah, I wouldn't, you imagine me sitting there in class taking, recording. No. I'm saying when I had to study, I would go home and record the study material into my tape recorder and listen back to it over and over.
I always just assume that I'm being recorded.
Really? Nowadays, you have to.
There's red light cameras everywhere. There's all this sort of stuff. Like my general approach to life always has been,
someone may be recording.
Well, no, not someone. Like you act in a manner that would be appropriate no matter who is around. You know what I mean? Like
I agree, but I do wonder sometimes. Do you ever wonder if they're like recording us here at the station?
Oh, I count on it all the time when I'm talking smack about the various things I have problems with in the building. I'm like, I really hope someone's listening. If people are like, you never know who's listening in. I was like, hey, maybe it's the only way to get hurt around here.
I do wonder, though. I'm like, because people will come into the studio gossiping and stuff. I'm like, wait, someone may be recording. You never know. Yeah. I don't want to lose my job because you're in here gossiping. Oh, and
then there's like, hey, like we saw a sales guy walk by the studio a little while ago with a tour of kids. And in this digital age, like if you're a 12-year-old, you're Instagramming literally everything. So you could wind up saying some wildly not cool stuff on some kid's Instagram story about how you've had it with the coffee machine, only cranking out just puerile garbage that you want no part of. So always assume as though you're being recorded. Anyways, she went to the cops. They got a search warrant for his phone, found all the video, so he did keep him, and he was arrested for voyeurism.
Oh, wow.
Let that be a lesson to all of us, Shelley Wade. I don't know what kind of lesson, but a lesson nevertheless.